The Wyoming Territory unfolded like a tapestry of stark beauty and unyielding menace, its vastness both a promise and a threat. The Bighorn Mountains loomed on the horizon, their peaks clawing at a sky streaked with amber and violet as the sun sank low. Clara Thornton, 24 and resolute, clutched the reins of the creaking buckboard, her knuckles pale against the worn leather. Dust coated her gray bonnet, and her green eyes, sharp with equal parts hope and trepidation, scanned the rutted trail ahead. Sagebrush Hollow lay somewhere beyond the next rise, a mining settlement carved into the wilderness. In her satchel, a letter from the town's council painted a grim picture, a schoolhouse on the brink of ruin, children hardened by labor, and a community skeptical of her purpose. Clara had left behind Ohio's gentle hills, her parents' farm, the familiar rhythm of church bells, for this chance to teach, to build something lasting in a place that seemed to resist it. Her journey had begun months ago, sparked by a newspaper ad seeking a teacher for a remote outpost. Clara, restless in her role as a schoolmarm's assistant, had yearned for more than grading papers and sweeping floors. She dreamed of shaping minds, of giving children the tools to rise above their circumstances. Her parents had pleaded with her to stay, citing the dangers of the frontier, but Clara's heart was set. Now, as the buckboard jolted over stones, she wondered if her courage had outpaced her sense. Sagebrush Hollow emerged from the dusk, a ragged cluster of clapboard shacks, saloons, and a lone church with a weathered steeple. The air carried the acrid tang of coal smoke, the distant thud of mining hammers, and the faint lilt of a fiddle from a saloon. Miners in soot-streaked overalls paused to watch her pass, their faces etched with curiosity and doubt. Women in faded calico whispered behind their hands, and a gaggle of children chased a hoop through the dust, their laughter sharp and fleeting. Clara's heart thudded. This was no place for softness, but she was no stranger to hard work. She would make it her home. The schoolhouse sat at the town's edge, a forlorn relic of ambition gone to seed. Its shingles curled like parchment, its chimney sagged, and its windows were clouded with grime. Clara dismounted, her boots sinking into the dry earth, and pushed open the door. The interior was worse. Mildew clung to the air, floorboards groaned, and a cracked blackboard hung askew. A family of mice skittered across a pile of broken desks. Her chest tightened, but she squared her shoulders. This was her charge, her chance to prove herself. As she unhitched the horse, a shadow loomed. A man stood before her, broad-shouldered and clad in a worn duster, a sheriff's badge glinting dully on his vest. His face was a study in hard angles, stubbled jaw, furrowed brow, eyes like flint beneath a wide-brimmed hat. He moved with the deliberate grace of a man who knew the weight of his authority. "You, the new teacher?" His voice was low, rough as the gravel underfoot, as if words were a scarce commodity. "Clara Thornton," she replied, lifting her chin. "And you are?" "Sheriff Amos Kane." He tipped his hat, a gesture more reflex than warmth. His gaze swept over her, assessing, unyielding. "Didn't expect you to show. Most don't last a week." Clara bristled, her hands tightening on the reins. "I'm not most, Sheriff. I came to teach, and I'll stay." A flicker crossed his face. Not a smile, but close. "We'll see." He turned and strode away, his boots kicking up dust, leaving Clara with her trunk and a knot of unease in her gut. Clara's first week was a blur of labor. She scrubbed walls until her hands bled, patched leaks with tar and hope, and bartered at the general store for chalk, slates, and a broom. The storekeeper, Mrs. Eliza Pritchard, a wiry woman with kind eyes and a sharp tongue, took a liking to her. "You've got grit, girl," Eliza said, tossing an extra pencil into Clara's basket. "You'll need it." Clara smiled, grateful for the first friendly face in Sagebrush Hollow. The schoolhouse slowly took shape. Clara swept out the mice, mended desks with borrowed tools, and hung a map of the United States, its edges frayed, but its promise intact. She slept on a cot in the corner, her meals simple: hardtack, beans, and coffee brewed on a battered stove. At night, the wind howled through the mountains, carrying the distant yip of coyotes. Loneliness gnawed at her, sharper than the cold, but she pushed it down. She was here for the children. They arrived on the 5th day, 10 in all, their ages spanning 6 to 16. They were a motley crew, clad in patched overalls and hand-me-down dresses, their faces smudged with dirt or defiance. Ellie, a shy girl with chestnut braids, clutched a rag doll. Tom, a lanky teen with a miner's swagger, eyed Clara warily. Little Ben, barely 7, carried a tattered primer, its pages dog-eared from use. There was also Sarah, a 12-year-old with a sharp tongue, and a father, Jed Harper, who worked the mines and scorned book learning. The children were tough, shaped by the relentless grind of the frontier, but Clara saw flickers of curiosity in their eyes, like sparks in dry grass. She taught them letters by scratching words in the dirt, numbers by counting stones from the creek. When Ellie read her first sentence, "The cat runs," her voice trembled with pride, and Clara's heart swelled. Tom, skeptical at first, began to linger after lessons, asking about the stars. Sarah, though prickly, showed a knack for sums, her pencil flying across the slate. Clara tailored her lessons to their world, teaching history through tales of trappers and geography by mapping the mountains. Slowly, the schoolhouse became a haven, its walls echoing with halting recitations and rare laughter. The townsfolk were less receptive. The mining council, led by Ezekiel Hargrove, a bullish man with a voice like a thunderclap, saw education as a frivolity. At the first town meeting, held in the church's cramped hall, Hargrove's words drowned out the murmurs. "Kids belong in the mines, not chasing dreams. We need hands, not scholars." Clara stood, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. "Learning gives them a future, Mr. Hargrove. Reading means they can keep accounts, write contracts, build something better than this." Snickers rippled through the crowd. Jed Harper, Sarah's father, spat into the dirt. "My girl don't need books to survive. You're wasting our time, Missy." Hargrove's eyes narrowed. "You're young, Miss Thornton. You'll learn how things work here." Clara sat, her hands trembling, but Eliza Pritchard leaned over, whispering, "Don't mind them, dear. Keep at it." The support, however small, kept Clara from despair. Loneliness became her shadow. She ate alone, wrote letters to her parents by lamplight, and dreamed of Ohio's green fields, only to wake to the stark reality of Sagebrush Hollow. The mountains, majestic by day, felt oppressive at night. their silence a reminder of her isolation. She wondered if she'd made a mistake, if her dreams were too big for this place. One evening, as Clara locked the schoolhouse, a figure emerged from the twilight. Amos Kane, carrying a stack of shingles bound with twine. Snow dusted his duster, the first flakes of an early winter, and his breath clouded in the chill. "Roof's gonna cave come the freeze," he said, dropping the shingles at her feet. "Fix it, or you'll be teaching in a snowdrift." Clara blinked, caught off guard. "I can't afford, ain't asking for pay." He picked up her hammer and climbed the ladder, his movements sure despite the fading light. Clara hesitated, then joined him, holding nails and passing shingles. They worked in silence, the cold biting at her fingers, the rhythmic tap of the hammer a strange comfort. The mountains loomed, their peaks silvered by moonlight, and the air smelled of pine and frost. When they finished, Clara brewed coffee on the schoolhouse stove, its warmth filling the small space. She handed Amos a tin mug, her curiosity outweighing her caution. "Why help me, Sheriff? You don't seem the charitable type." He stared into the fire, his face half-shadowed. "Kids need something better than this place. You're trying. That's more'n most do." He paused, his voice softening. "My sister Mary was a teacher, taught in a town like this. She'd have liked you." The admission, gruff but unguarded, stirred something in Clara. She glimpsed a man carrying unseen burdens, his sternness a shield for a heart that had known loss. "What happened to her?" she asked gently. "Fever took her, 10 years back. Tried to save her, but—" He trailed off, his jaw tight. "Couldn't." "I'm sorry," Clara said, her voice soft. "Thank you for the roof and for telling me." He nodded, drained his coffee, and left without another word. But as Clara watched him disappear into the night, she felt a spark of connection, fragile but real. Amos Kane was no hero from a dime novel, but there was honesty in him, a quiet strength she hadn't expected. Winter clamped down on Sagebrush Hollow like a vice. Snow piled against the schoolhouse, and the wind screamed through the mountains, rattling the windows. Clara kept the stove burning, its meager heat barely holding the cold at bay. The children huddled around it, their fingers stiff as they practiced letters. Clara taught them history by telling stories of Lewis and Clark, geography by sketching maps of the territory. She read them Ivanhoe, her voice weaving tales of knights and honor, and their eyes shone with wonder. Ellie began to write her own stories. Tom memorized constellations, and even Sarah softened, her sums growing more confident. Amos appeared more often, his visits unannounced but welcome. He brought firewood, repaired a broken window, and carved a crude bookshelf from scrap lumber. His sheriff duties kept him busy, breaking up saloon fights, tracking stray cattle, mediating disputes over mining claims. But he always found time for the schoolhouse. Clara began to look for him, her heart lifting at the sight of his silhouette in the doorway. One afternoon, as he stacked logs by the stove, Ellie tugged at his sleeve. "Sheriff, you ever read a book?" Amos's mouth twitched. "Some? Long time ago. Miss Thornton's got a good one, about a knight and a dragon." Ellie thrust Ivanhoe at him, her eyes wide. Clara hid a smile as Amos took the book, his large hands awkward but gentle. Reckon I'll try it, he said, and Ellie beamed. That evening, Clara found him lingering by the door. You don't have to read it, you know, she teased. Might, he said, his eyes meeting hers. Kids got a way of making you want to. Clara's heart lifted. In Amos, she saw not just a protector, but a man capable of softness, however deeply buried. She began to notice small things about him. The way his hands, rough from years of work, were careful with delicate tasks. The way his eyes softened when he watched the children. The way his rare smiles transformed his face, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Trouble brewed as winter deepened. Hargrove, emboldened by the council's grumbling, renewed his campaign to close the school. We're bleeding money, he declared at a meeting, his breath clouding in the frigid church. That schoolhouse is a drain. The teachers filling heads with nonsense. Clara faced him, her voice clear despite the hostile eyes. The children are learning to read, to write, to think for themselves. That's not nonsense, it's hope. Ellie's writing stories, Tom's learning astronomy, Sarah's mastering sums. They're building futures. Hargrove scoffed, but before he could retort, Amos stood, his presence commanding silence. Miss Thornton's doing more for this town's future than your minds ever will. Those kids are reading, figuring sums. Close the school, and you're robbing them of a chance to be more than minors. You want Sagebrush Hollow to be more than a pit? Let her work. His words, delivered with quiet conviction, shifted the room. Eliza Pritchard nodded approvingly, and even Jed Harper looked thoughtful. The council voted to keep the school, though Hargrove's glare promised the fight wasn't over. As Clara left the church, Amos fell into step beside her, his coat dusted with snow. Thank you, she said, her breath visible in the cold. I didn't expect you to speak. Didn't plan to, he admitted, but you're worth fighting for. The words hung between them, simple but heavy. Clara's cheeks warmed, and she looked away, afraid of the hope stirring within her. She was beginning to see Amos not as a stern sheriff, but as a man who might share her dreams, if only they could bridge the distance between them. Spring brought a new trial, a fever that swept Sagebrush Hollow like wildfire. The doctor, Dr. Pritchard, Eliza's husband, was overwhelmed, his hands trembling as he tended the sick. The church became a hospital, its pews filled with coughing miners and feverish children. Clara turned the schoolhouse into an infirmary, boiling water, changing bandages, and soothing frightened patients. She barely slept, her days a blur of broth and bandages, her nights haunted by the fear of losing her students. Amos was there too, hauling supplies, carrying stretchers, and guarding the infirmary from desperate looters. His strength was a constant, but Clara saw the toll it took. His eyes shadowed, his hands trembling after hours of work. One night, as they sat by the schoolhouse stove, Clara noticed a scar on his forearm, barely visible in the firelight. How'd you get that? She asked, her voice soft. He glanced at it, then away. Fight years back. Outlaws hit a stagecoach I was guarding. Lost good men that day. Barely got out myself. She reached for his hand, her fingers brushing his calloused palm. You carry a lot, don't you? He didn't pull away, but his voice was low. Lost my sister, Mary, to fever too. She taught in a town like this. Tried to save her, but I was too late. Always too late. Clara squeezed his hand, her heart aching for him. You're saving people now, Amos. You're saving me every day you're here. He looked at her, his eyes searching, and for a moment, The world narrowed to the space between them, the crackle of the fire, the warmth of their joined hands, the unspoken promise in their gaze. Then he stood, breaking the spell. Get some rest, Clara. Tomorrow's another fight. Son? The fever receded, leaving Sagebrush Hollow weary but alive. Clara reopened the schoolhouse, its walls scrubbed clean, its air fresh with spring. The children returned, their faces thinner, but their spirits unbroken. Ellie wrote a story about a brave teacher. Tom sketched a map of the stars, and Sarah, to Clara's surprise, brought her a daisy from the creek. Even Jed Harper stopped by, muttering, "You done good with my girl," before turning away. Clara and Amos grew closer, their bond woven in quiet moments. They tended a garden behind the schoolhouse, planting potatoes and beans, their hands brushing in the soil. They rode into the hills, watching sunsets paint the mountains gold, and shared stories by the fire. Amos spoke of his past, his sister's death, his years as a drifter, the weight of his badge. Clara shared her dreams of a school that grew, a home filled with love, a life rooted in meaning. Their conversations, once cautious, became a bridge, each word a step toward trust. One evening, as they sat on the schoolhouse steps, Amos turned to her, his eyes steady. "Clara, I ain't good with words, but I want you to stay. Not just for the kids, not just for the town, for me." Her heart swelled, a tide of certainty washing over her. "I'm not going anywhere, Amos. This is home. Your home." He leaned closer, his hand cupping her cheek, and kissed her. His lips were rough but gentle, and the world fell away. In that moment, Sagebrush Hollow was no longer a battleground, but a sanctuary built on love and hard-won hope. The Schoolteacher Sanctuary. The Wyoming Territory sprawled like a canvas of raw beauty and unrelenting menace, its vastness both a siren's call and a warning. The Bighorn Mountains loomed, their peaks clawing at a sky streaked with amber and violet as the sun dipped low. Clara Thornton, 24 and resolute, gripped the reins of the creaking buckboard, her knuckles pale against the worn leather. Dust coated her gray bonnet, and her green eyes, sharp with hope and trepidation, scanned the rutted trail to Sagebrush Hollow. In her satchel, a letter from the town's council painted a grim picture. A schoolhouse on the brink of ruin, children hardened by labor, and a community skeptical of her purpose. Clara had left Ohio's gentle hills, her parents' farm, the rhythm of church bells, for this chance to teach, to build something lasting in a place that seemed to resist it. Her journey began with a newspaper ad seeking a teacher for a remote outpost. Clara, restless as a schoolmarm's assistant, had yearned for more than grading papers. She dreamed of shaping minds, giving children tools to rise above their lot. Her parents had pleaded, citing the frontier's dangers, but Clara's heart was set. Now, as the buckboard jolted over stones, she wondered if courage had outpaced sense. Sagebrush Hollow emerged from the dusk, a ragged cluster of clapboard shacks, saloons, and a lone church with a weathered steeple. The air carried coal smoke, the thud of mining hammers, and a fiddle's lilt from a saloon. Miners in soot-streaked overalls paused, their faces etched with curiosity. Women in faded calico whispered, and children chased a hoop through the dust, their laughter sharp. Clara's heart thudded. This was no place for softness, but she was no stranger to work. She would make it home. The schoolhouse sat at the town's edge, a relic of ambition gone to seed. Its shingles curled, its chimneys sagged, and its windows were clouded with grime. Clara dismounted, boots sinking into dry earth, and pushed open the door. Mildew clung to the air, floorboards groaned, and a cracked blackboard hung askew. Mice skittered across broken desks. Her chest tightened, but she squared her shoulders. This was her charge. As she unhitched the horse, a shadow loomed. A man stood, broad-shouldered, in a worn duster, a sheriff's badge glinting. His face was hard angles, stubbled jaw, furrowed brow, eyes like flint beneath a wide-brimmed hat. He moved with deliberate grace, a man who knew his authority's weight. "You the new teacher?" His voice was rough as gravel, words a scarce commodity. "Clara Thornton," she replied, lifting her chin. "And you?" "Sheriff Amos Kane?" He tipped his hat, more reflex than warmth. His gaze swept her, assessing. "Didn't expect you. Most don't last a week." Clara bristled, hands tightening on the reins. "I'm not most, Sheriff. I came to teach, and I'll stay." A flicker crossed his face. Not a smile, but close. "We'll see." He strode away, boots kicking dust, leaving Clara with her trunk and unease. Clara's first week was labor. She scrubbed walls until her hands bled, patched leaks with tar, and bartered at the general store for chalk, slates, a broom. The storekeeper, Mrs. Eliza Pritchard, wiry with kind eyes and a sharp tongue, took a liking. "You've got grit, girl," Eliza said, tossing in a pencil. "You'll need it." Clara smiled, grateful for a friendly face. The schoolhouse took shape. Clara swept mice, mended desks, hung a frayed map of the United States. She slept on a cot, ate hardtack and beans, brewed coffee on a battered stove. At night, wind howled, coyotes yipped, loneliness gnawed, but she pushed it down. She was here for the children. They arrived day 5, 10 in all, ages 6 to 16. A motley crew in patched overalls and hand-me-down dresses, faces smudged with dirt or defiance. Ellie, shy with chestnut braids, clutched a rag doll. Tom, lanky with a miner's swagger, eyed Clara warily. Ben, 7, carried a tattered primer. Sarah, 12, sharp-tongued, had a father, Jed Harper, who scorned books. Tough, shaped by the frontier, they held sparks of curiosity. Clara taught letters in the dirt, numbers with creek stones. Ellie's first sentence, "The cat runs," trembled with pride, warming Clara. Tom lingered, asking about stars. Sarah, prickly, excelled at sums. Clara tailored lessons to their world, trappers' tales for history, mountain maps for geography. The schoolhouse became a haven, echoing with recitations and laughter. Townsfolk were colder. The mining council, led by Ezekiel Hargrove, a bullish man with a thunderclap voice, saw education as frivolity. At the church meeting, Hargrove's words drowned murmurs. "Kids belong in mines, not chasing dreams. We need hands." Clara stood, heart pounding, voice steady. Learning gives futures. Reading means accounts, contracts, something better. Snickers rippled. Jed spat. My girl don't need books. Hargrove's eyes narrowed. You're young, Miss Thornton. You'll learn. Clara sat, trembling, but Eliza whispered, Keep at it. The support kept despair at bay. Loneliness shadowed her. She ate alone, wrote letters, dreamed of Ohio, woke to Sagebrush Hollow's starkness. Mountains, majestic by day, oppressed at night, their silence isolating. She wondered if her dreams were too big. One evening, locking the schoolhouse, Clara saw Amos, carrying shingles, snow dusted as duster, breath clouding. Roof's gonna cave, he said, dropping shingles. Fix it. Clara blinked. I can't afford, ain't askin' pay. He climbed the ladder, hammer in hand. Clara joined, holding nails. They worked in silence, cold biting, hammer taps comforting. Mountains loomed, air pine-scented. Finished, Clara brewed coffee, handing Amos a mug. Why help? You don't seem charitable. He stared into the fire. Kids need better. You're trying. His voice softened. My sister Mary was a teacher. She'd have liked you. Clara glimpsed a man with burdens, sternness a shield. What happened? Fever, 10 years back. His jaw tightened. Couldn't save her. I'm sorry, Clara said. Thank you for the roof, for telling me. He nodded, left. Clara watched, feeling a fragile spark. Winter clamped Sagebrush Hollow. Snow piled, wind screamed. Clara kept the stove burning, children huddling. She taught history with Lewis and Clark, geography with maps. Read Ivanhoe. Ellie wrote stories. Tom memorized constellations. Sarah softened. Their laughter anchored her. Amos visited, bringing firewood, repairing windows, carving a bookshelf. Sheriff duties, saloon fights, cattle tracking, claim disputes, kept him busy, but he found time. Clara looked for his silhouette, heart lifting. Ellie tugged Amos's sleeve. You read books? Some, he said. Miss Thornton's got a knight and dragon. Ellie thrust Ivanhoe. Clara smiled as Amos took it. Reckon I'll try, he said. Clara teased. You don't have to. Might, he said, eyes meeting hers. Clara saw softness in him, careful hands, eyes gentle with children, rare smiles like sunlight. Hargrove renewed his campaign. We're bleeding money, he said at a meeting. School's a drain. Clara faced him. Children are learning. Ellie's stories, Tom's astronomy, Sarah's sums, that's hope. Hargrove scoffed. Amos stood. Miss Thornton's doing more than mines. Close the school, rob their future. His words shifted the room. Eliza nodded. Jed looked thoughtful. The council kept the school, but Hargrove's glare lingered. Amos walked Clara out. Thank you, she said. Didn't expect you. Didn't plan to, he said. You're worth it. Clara's cheeks warmed, hope stirring. Spring brought fever, sweeping like wildfire. Dr. Pritchard, Eliza's husband, was overwhelmed. Clara turned the schoolhouse into an infirmary, boiling water, changing bandages. She barely slept, haunted by losing students. Amos hauled supplies, carried stretchers, guarded from looters. Clara saw his toll, shadowed eyes, trembling hands. One night, by the stove, she noticed a scar. How'd you get that? Outlaws, stagecoach guard, lost men. You carry a lot. Lost Mary to fever, tried to save her. His jaw tightened. Clara squeezed his hand. You're saving now, Amos. Me, every day. He looked, eyes searching. The world narrowed. Fire crackle, warm hands, unspoken promise. He stood. Rest, Clara. Fever receded, town weary but alive. Clara reopened the schoolhouse, children thinner but spirited. Ellie wrote, Tom sketched, Sarah brought a daisy. Jed muttered, You done good. Clara and Amos grew closer, tending a garden, riding hills, sharing stories. Amos spoke of loss, Clara of dreams. Conversations bridged trust. Amos said, Clara, I want you to stay, for me. I'm not going anywhere, she said. You're home. He kissed her, rough but gentle, world fading. Spring's thaw brought peril. Snowmelt swelled the river, threatening mines. Hargrove rallied men to build a dam, but grudges frayed tempers. Outlaws, drawn by silver rumors, lurked. Clara and Amos piled sandbags, children helping, singing to ease fear. Amos watched Clara, eyes soft. At dusk, outlaws struck. Gunfire splitting air, screams echoing. Amos rallied ascending, his voice cutting chaos. Hold! Protect women, kids! Clara herded children into the schoolhouse, barricading. Ellie sobbed. Will Sheriff save us? He will, Clara said, heart pounding. We'll help. The fight was brutal. Gunfire, shouts, blood. Amos rallied, wounding an outlaw. Clara peeked, saw him duck bullets, fearless. Townsfolk fought, driven by desperation. Outlaws fled, leaving wounded, one dead. The dam, battered, crumbled. River surged. Clara and Amos led, piling rocks, mud-soaked. Children passed stones. Townsfolk joined. Eliza, fierce. Jed steady. Hours blurred, hands blistered. Dawn broke, dam holding. Clara and Amos collapsed on schoolhouse steps, sharing a canteen. Air smelled of earth, hope. You saved us, Clara said. We saved each other, Amos said, hand warm. Summer stirred unease. A stranger arrived. Daniel Whitmore, Clara's former suitor from Ohio. Tall, polished. He claimed he'd come to invest in mines. Clara froze, memories flooding. His proposal, her refusal, her need for purpose over comfort. Clara, he said, smiling, you've done well. Come back with me. I'm home, she said, voice firm. This is my life. Daniel lingered, charming townsfolk, sowing doubt. Hargrove warmed to him, eyeing Clara. Amos tensed, eyes guarded. Clara confided, he wanted me to marry him. I chose this. Amos nodded. Good choice. He ain't you. Tension grew. Daniel pressed, offering Clara a teaching post in Ohio. She refused, but rumors spread. Clara was leaving. Children grew quiet. Ellie tearful. Amos confronted Daniel. She's staying. Leave. Daniel smirked. She'll tire of this. Clara rallied the town, teaching adults to read. Eliza joined. Jed too. Pride in Sarah's progress. Tom, troubled, stole from the store. Amos mentored him, teaching tracking, giving purpose. One night, Daniel cornered Clara. You're wasting your life. This is my life, she said. Go. Daniel left, defeated. Trust returned. Children laughed. Summer bloomed. Schoolhouse gleamed. Children thrived. Clara taught poetry, science, history. Townsfolk softened, seeing her as kin. Clara and Amos's bond deepened. They tended gardens, watched sunsets, shared dreams. One evening, Amos said, Marry me, Clara. Yes, she whispered, heart full. They wed in fall, schoolhouse adorned with wildflowers. Ellie sang, Tom carried rings, Ben tossed petals, Eliza baked, Jed clapped. Hargrove nodded gruffly. Mountains glowed, peaks golden. Winter loomed, but Clara stood in her classroom, snow dusting windows. Amos's arm circled her, warmth anchoring unseen. Children read, voices rising. Sagebrush Hollow was her sanctuary, built on love, resilience, hope. The Wild West was harsh, but here, Clara and Amos carved a life, rooted, enduring, bright, 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 bright.